Hello, everybody. Welcome to Practical Actions Clean Cooking Supporter event. I'm just looking at the webinar chat on the side, and I love that everyone's already chatting. The admin guys have asked where you guys are tuned in from, so do feel free to sort of converse and talk about what you're learning in today's session in this little chat box. I think it's quite nice. Welcome from wherever you are tuning in from. I think it's from lots of different places around the world. It's a pleasure to have you here. My name is Leyla Kazim. I'm a TV and radio broadcaster, presenter. If any of you watch a little show called MasterChef, you might recognize me from that. Or if any of you tune in to BBC Radio 4, you can also find me on the food programme. And I have been a very proud ambassador of Practical Action for quite a few years now because they're fantastic, which so many of you will already know because so many supporters are tuning in. We have got a really insightful hour or so coming up where we're going to be exploring the impact of clean cooking around the world. And I mean, if you think about it, the nature of this work often affects women because it is often women who have the burden or the work of cooking for the household. And so we thought it would be a really nice topic to talk about this week in line with International Women's Day, which was on Saturday, the 8th of March. Now, in this session, we are joined by team members from Nepal and also our Kenyan team. And we're going to learn about the following. We're going to firstly understand what cooking is like for many people in Kenya, and especially what kind of problems women face while they're cooking. We're going to learn about what clean cooking actually is. We're going to learn about the changes that women have experienced in their lives after they have moved to clean cook stoves. We're also going to be finding out the kind of food that is cooked in Kenya, which may well be my favorite part of the session. And all of this is going to be interspersed with some actual cooking action that we are going to see from our team in Nepal. Not only that, but you will all be sent the recipe cards for the recipes that you are cooking, that the Nepalese team are cooking. And I mean, it's about lunchtime in the UK now. My advice is if you haven't eaten, it might be a good idea to do that before tuning into today, because it should come with a warning that you may feel hungry after today's session. And then to mention at the end, there will be time for a Q&A. So during the next hour or so, do think up some juicy questions because me and the rest of the team would love to hear them. Once again, thank you all for being here. Now, I'm delighted to have Purity from our Kenyan team on the line today. Purity, hello. Here she's coming. Is she there? There she is.
Hi, Leila.
Hi, Purity. I think you
Hi.
need to. That's it. Now
Good
we can.
morning, good afternoon, everyone. It's a
Um,
pleasure to join this conversation, and I'm happy to
Purity,
be
please give us a
here.
little introduction about who you are and what you do, please.
Thank you, Leila. My name is Purity Ndereba. I am the project manager for the Women in Energy Enterprises in Kenya project. This is one of Practical Action's flagship energy projects that is implemented here in Kenya. And for the last 1 decade, we've been supporting women entrepreneurs to effectively lead, participating, and benefit from an inclusive energy transition as an essential right to development. We have supported over 1,000 women entrepreneurs, and we still continue supporting and also driving energy transition within the rural communities and urban and peri-urban areas.
Thank you so much, Purity. We're going to be learning a lot more about all of that very shortly. But before we begin, let us whet your appetites, because we are going to head straight over to Nepal, where Shushma looks like she might be thinking about lunch.
Namaste, my name is Sushma Thapa and I'm working as an administrative officer in Practical Action Nepal Country Office. Today we are in our office critic to make this special dish called kheer or simply rice pudding. We are preparing this dish in improved cook stove, which is far better than traditional biomass cook stoves due to its higher efficiency and consumes 70 to 80% less firewood than biomass cook stoves. During my recent field visit in western Nepal, the user of these improved cook stoves had shared their experience. Previously, 50 kg of firewood lasts for only 3 days, whereas with the use of this improved cook stove, the same amount of firewood lasts for 15 days. This means huge time saving, and this improved cook stoves emits less smoke and saves environment and improve the health of the rural families in Nepal. Talking about kheer, kheer is a sweet dish mostly prepared in special occasion and some rituals. I'm excited to use this improved cook stove. Let's start, shall we? To make this special dish, we need sugar, some dry nuts, rice soaked in water for 10 to 15 minutes before the preparation, and milk. Next time you see me, we'll be starting to cook our dish.
Oh, what a teaser, Shushma. I already know I want to eat whatever she's cooking. But how interesting that she mentioned there 50 kilograms of firewood would only usually last for 3 days. But with these clean cook stoves, they actually last for around 2 weeks, which is incredible. Purity. Let's talk a little bit about what is cooking like for many people in Kenya? What kind of problems do the women especially face?
I'll start by sharing the basic number of 68% of communities in Kenya, of households in Kenya, still use traditional methods of cooking. This means that they're using wood fuels, they're using crop waste, they're using cow dung, and even kerosene for cooking. All these are mainly absorbed by women who are the key cooks in our households. In the rural setup, most households use traditional firewood, the traditional cook stoves, which uses firewood and sometimes charcoal. In the urban areas, the informal settlement, they usually use kerosene and also charcoal. But then for the middle income earners, they will also have a mix of charcoal and a bit of the liquid petroleum gas. All this, majority of the population are still using traditional inefficient cook stoves and also using traditional fuels that are not friendly for the environment and also for their households. Part of it, it's because of the cultural practices that we have, or the cultural influences, because in our culture, the use of the traditional stove, which is a 3-stone fire setup, it is culturally termed as a family unit. So you will see one stone is referred to as the father, the second stone is representative of the mother, and the third stone is representative of the children. So to some point, people will still use traditional stoves because they represent the culture. But what this does to the women is that it causes a lot of drudgery on the women, because they're the ones who have to walk long distances deep into the forest to go collecting wood. While they do this, they are at risk of attack and of injury. Most of the women will have to walk kilometers and kilometers to go fetching for firewood. They will be attacked by animals, including elephants, leopards, even lions. We've had cases of animal attack to women, and also human attack, where women are raped. They face sexual-based violence. They face all these challenges when they are doing this. They also face a lot of back problems, neck problems, even head problems, as they carry a heavy load of wood every now and then for long distances. So it's also not good for their health. And even after doing all this, when they get home, they still have to go through the process of chopping this wood into smaller pieces to fit into the kitchen or the stove sizes. So it's still an additional work to the women. And when it gets to cooking, they are also at risk of inhaling indoor air pollution because they're the same people who will cook. And the children will also be affected because most of the time you'll find the women and the children are the one in the kitchen. So beyond that, what it does overall is that it limits women economic participation. They will be doing all this process just to cook a meal for a whole day, looking for firewood, and then 1 to 3 hours preparing a meal. They do not have time for economic activities. And the children sometimes are pulled from school to participate in this. So this is drudgery on women, and it's also a health risk to the women, including the economic challenges that come with it.
And I think, I mean, we say there's a lot of smoke. Look, we actually have, wow, we actually have some video footage of the kind of smoke we're talking about. So this is the first time I've seen this. So, I mean, wow, you know, I mean, I'm just thinking, we're all used to sort of barbecues and things like that, and you would never have a barbecue inside a building because of the smoke. You think you stand downwind of the barbecue and everyone's coughing and moving out of the way, and yet with these traditional cooking methods, we're talking about women, families sitting amongst this smoke for hours after the women have already spent most of their waking hours already trying to source the fuel for these traditional stoves, which leaves them open to so many health and safety risks. And also it means they just don't have any time left to do anything else, such as, you know, I don't know, be brilliant and start businesses and this other kind of stuff. So it's incredible to really get a sense of the amount of time and effort and the health and safety risk that actually goes into the simple act of a mother, a wife, a woman wanting to feed her family. It's incredible to hear that. Okay, Purity. So then now let's move on.
The act of love and care for the woman is the same act that leads to this deadly risk.
Which is such a sad thing to hear. However, there is such a thing as clean cooking. Now, when I first heard the term clean cooking, I was like, what does that mean? So, Purity, maybe you could explain to us what we mean by clean cooking.
Clean cooking simply refers to the use of technologies and fuels that reduce emissions, that produce minimal harmful emissions. And this can be achieved by simply using a cleaner cooking technology that burns fuel more efficiently. Some of the technologies that we see in the market would include biogas. They would also include liquid petroleum gas, what we commonly call the LPG. It would also include electric cooking, bioethanol cooking, and even solar cooking. So simply technologies that we have and we can easily use within the communities that we serve.
And in fabulous Blue Peter fashion, you've got some examples on the table with you of some clean cook stoves. And just having a glance at these, a lot of these are going to be quite familiar, I think, to a lot of us, because, I mean, I don't own one, but I believe one of these is an air fryer for starters. So Purity, maybe you could just talk us through, because there isn't just one type, or there isn't just one way of cooking cleanly. There are lots of different options. So yeah, if you talk us through what you have in front of you.
So in front of me, and I like that you realize we have some new nice technologies here. As some of the technologies I've talked about, generally majority of these are e-cooking technologies, so they will use electricity as a source of fuel. With me here is an air fryer. Probably most people are familiar with an air fryer. And then we also have an induction cooker. This is a small cooking pot that also uses electricity. And then we have, second to the last is an electric pressure cooker. And then at the very end, we have a rice cooker. All these technologies may be in one household, only being used for different meals, different times of the day, and also for different recipes. I might be able to share a little bit more about when and where people are able to use this technology, either interchangeably or at the same time.
And these...
Oh, and sorry, this is a gas. This is a cylinder for an LPG gas. So we have different sizes of the LPG gas cylinder. This would serve a lot different markets for the communities that we serve.
Purity, I think we just lost your audio a little bit there. So just a heads up to keep an eye out. Maybe it was the internet connection slightly went off there. But what I think is amazing is that so many of us have maybe one or two examples of these, you know, for example, rice cookers, electronic pressure cookers, the air fryers in our homes, and we kind of take for granted that these are efficient, clean ways to cook, and that not everyone necessarily has access to these kinds of technologies, but when they do, it can make such huge differences to people's lives. Is there any kind of timeline with these technologies? Like, are some of them older than others and some are newer, or have these, like, how long have these been around and available?
Generally, some of the technologies have been here longer, like the biogas technologies, the liquid petroleum gas have also been here longer. But the e-cooking technologies, what we are seeing here, the air fryers, the electric pressure cookers, the induction cookers are pretty new to our market. So they've just recently been introduced to the market, and you find that most of the households do not have the technologies and are still not able to afford the technologies. And even the supply itself is a challenge within the markets that we serve. For LPG, even though it has been here, the gas, even though it has been here, what the market has experienced is that the cylinders have been big size cylinders, which are also expensive. So the rural women or the low-income households are not able to afford them. So they are stuck with the firewood and also with the charcoal and kerosene because that's what they can afford.
I'm just looking at the chat, Purity, and people are like, I've got an air fryer, I've been using an induction hob, and various things. So it's slow cookers and all sorts. So it's nice that people are relating to these clean cooking technologies. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to head back over to Nepal, where I believe Shushma and Himal are rustling up lunch. So let's see how they're getting on with that.
First of all, we boil the milk for 20 to 30 minutes. After the consistency of milk gets thicker, we now add the soaked rice into the boiled milk. And we stir the rice gently so that it didn't break into pieces. We now add sugar into it, and the quantity of sugar depends on your taste. We now add the dry nuts into this. Stir it gently and let it be cooked for 10 to 15 minutes. Now our kheer is almost ready. We will pair it up with aloo ka achar. Now my colleague Himal will demonstrate to prepare aloo ka achar.
Namaste everyone, I am Himal Somlagai. I work at Practical Action. Today I am going to show you how to prepare aloo ka achar, which is also called potato pickle. Potato pickles are used in every occasion and festival in Nepali household. Now I am going to show you some recipes of the aloo ka achar. These are the ingredients for potato pickle. First of all, we have potato, onion, green chili, sesame powder, coriander, oil, and turmeric powder, salt. Let's start by boiling the potato. In part 3, we will be tasting the dish and sharing the recipe. Thank you.
Oh my goodness. Now, did I or did I not warn you all that this session might make you all feel hungry? How much do I want to eat both of those things? Also considering starting a petition for Shushma and Himmel to get their own cooking show. That is a show that I would watch. But also seeing that cook stove, which was inside, and amazing how there was no smoke coming out of it. Such a difference to the video of the footage we saw before where the house was full of smoke. Okay, Purity. So now let's talk a little bit about some of the changes that you have seen in women's lives where they have moved from these traditional methods of cooking, which are not good for them, to these cleaner ways of cooking.
One of the things we've noticed in the market is that with increased awareness and availability of the technologies, there's increased adoption of cleaner technologies in the households. But what is happening is that they are doing technology and fuel stacking. What this means is that they will have traditional technology, but also have a cleaner technology, a new cleaner technology. So as I mentioned, a household may have a variety of technologies, and they will decide what meal uses what technology. What time of the day do they use that technology for? So a household with a liquid petroleum gas and a charcoal stove will opt to use the gas in the morning because they have no time to light the jiko and to do all that work with the stove, with the charcoal stove, and then decide to use the charcoal stove for heavy grains boiling and also for the daytime cooking. Someone with an electric pressure cooker like the one I have here will opt to boil their meat with the electric pressure cooker, but also decide to prepare their rice with the rice cooker and cook tea using the induction cooker, because the pot that is used with the electric pressure cooker, if it has cooked stew, we would never cook tea in the same pot. So we will use different technologies for different purposes, different times of the day, and also depending on what households have. What we've also realized is that by doing that, there's a lot of cost saving because people are slowly transitioning from the old traditional technologies to modern technologies, which are more efficient and which are faster to use, which are cleaner, which are better for especially for the women who are the users of these technologies. This comes with the saving on finances. It comes with a cost saving because the lesser they buy charcoal, the lesser they have to buy firewood if they want to buy firewood. That money can be put into other uses like school fees, education. It can be used for the startup of a business. It can be used for personal growth. It can be used for any other thing. So there's economic empowerment when there's a saving from using a modern technology. There's efficient time use. And this is also key for the women because the minute you have a cleaner technology, the men are now more willing to support, to help with cooking in the house. So you'll find that women are now, the households are more accommodative of older male children and their spouses and their partners to be able to come and use the better technology. So this is less drudgery on the women. But essentially, we've seen a lot of adoption of these newer technologies. We've seen reduction in medical issues, medical expenses. The ones who are adopting this are confirming that the medical issues related to inhaling of smoke are now reducing, and they are able to do more work. They have more time to rest, they have more time to socialize, they have more time for business, and they have more time for their families. So this is actually good for the communities and for the households.
And do you know, Purity, any people personally who have experienced these so many benefits from simply changing the methods with which they cook?
Yes. I have stories from a lot of women that the project is serving, the week 3 project is serving. But let me share a story from one of our project participants by the name of Rose Makandi. So Rose had a small electrical shop. She's a mother, she has a family. So essentially, she would wake up in the morning. She had the combination of a charcoal stove, the traditional charcoal stove, and the firewood stove, because she lives in the rural areas of the Mount Kenya region. So she would wake up in the morning, use her jiko, her charcoal stove, to prepare meals for her children, and that would force her to wake up very early in the morning, prepare meals for the whole day, because she has to go to work and her children have to go to school. But then in the evening, she would have to close again early to be able to use the firewood stove in the evening to prepare now meals for the evening, to warm water for showering, and for any other cooking that needed to be done in the evening when she has more time. When the project introduced her to clean cook stoves and lighting technologies, she did not realize that she had a better alternative. She did know she had a better alternative, but she decided she would buy a modern charcoal stove, and she went ahead to buy the charcoal stove that you can see her holding. It's a modern charcoal stove that can also use briquettes, and it can also use pellets. But then she decided to use this on charcoal because she was not familiar with briquettes. And she realized that this was way much more saving. She saved 60% of the amount of money she was using on charcoal with the traditional stove. The stove would also light faster, so she was using less time to light the stove. The stove was easier to manage than her traditional stove. The stove was also more efficient, and the emissions from the stove were like almost zero. She couldn't feel the smoke from the stove. And what it did is that rather than her cooking from outside when it is cold, she moved the jiko to the house. She moved the stove inside the house, and she could cook comfortably from her table inside the house. This was really amazing for her. So looking at the savings, she decided to invest that money, stock the products in her small shop, and now start promoting the technology to other women. So she bought a few stoves, put them at her shop, and then she started going around to the women groups promoting this technology and telling them how amazing the stove was. So the women started buying, and of course, more income for her, of course, more demand for the product. And she came back to us and she was like, I really want more technologies. I need to promote more newer, modern technologies, because the women are asking, what else? What more can we use for our houses? So we advised her to go for the electric pressure cooker like the one I was showing here. And she has also been selling that. She was the first adopter at the same time. And what she did is that she slowly now moved from using the charcoal stove to using the electric pressure cooker. Because what the electric pressure cooker can do is that it can fry the food, it can boil, it can saute, it can, you can literally do almost everything with it, including baking. And this was really amazing for a woman who barely had time in the morning to prepare her children and family to go to school and also to go to work, and has to close early in the evening, come and start preparing meals. So it made her work so much easier, And it also helped her to think, why should she close her shop early? So she brought the electric pressure cooker in the shop and started cooking from the shop, then carrying the food home. So she would no longer close the shop early, but rather she would open for longer, have her children come to the shop in the evening, and then they would go home together, already having eaten the meal she had prepared at the shop. From that, she realized that she can create employment out of this. So she has hired four youths to support her promote the technologies, because the demand is also high and there are newer technologies. So she needed to create more awareness. So she has two young people doing on-ground promotion of the technology, the clean technologies, and then she has two people doing her online marketing. So she's using social media to promote the technologies, and from this, she's able to now sell beyond her shop, beyond the women groups that were her main target market, and she's going beyond the counties of her physical presence. So she's selling outside Meru County, she's selling across the country, and she's able to also manage deliveries to these counties. So for us, she has been one of the ladies who has acted as a pillar for the other women to learn from, in terms of how can you adopt a new technology and how can you make business sense out of that technology, also creating employment and also addressing climate change emissions, greenhouse gas emissions, by just using newer technologies. So she's just not selling the charcoal stove and the pressure cooker, but she has now added newer technologies. She has, she's selling induction cookers, she's selling the food processors, and she's also selling infrared cookers within her shop. So she has diversified even the product range at her shop, from just an electronics shop to cooking technologies, cooking and lighting technologies that are even more beneficial and making her more money for the shop. I think she has such a beautiful story to tell.
This is a wild, amazing story. So simply from Rose moving from the traditional ways of cooking to the new technologies, it's freed up her time. It's allowed her to reclaim all this money that she was spending on fuel, which she's instead invested in her business, which is promoting these clean technologies to other women. So she's sort of making herself more money from the fact that she's moved to these new technologies. She's spreading the word about the benefit of these new technologies. She's enabling other women in her community to use these technologies. And she's employing people, all from the fact that she's moved from the old traditional ways of cooking to the new ways of cooking, which shows you it's kind of like this snowball ripple effect. It's not just about you can cook quicker and you can cook with less smoke. It's incredible how the far-reaching elements of what seems to be such a simple change. I mean, that is an amazing story, and it's so nice to get a sense of how our donations actually help people on the ground. Beautiful story, great explanation, Purity. Thank you. Now, I have a question, which I think we're all dying to know. This is about food. So I will make an assumption that a lot of us on the line today don't know that much about Kenyan food. So what we would love to know is, tell us about the food in Kenya and the kinds of dishes that are traditionally cooked in communities and that are cooked on these stoves, and make us a little bit more hungry than we already are, Purity.
We are already hungry after watching the food video from our Nepalese colleagues. But the Kenyan food is also just as appetizing, and we will be sharing some of the recipes from our Kenyan contexts. But some of the common food in Kenya, generally we have what we call ugali. So ugali is one of the most common food you'll find in Kenyan households. So ugali is a mix of maize flour, you may call it corn flour, with boiling water. So you just put water and mix with the maize flour and let it settle. So it's like firm porridge, more firm, not too liquid as the porridge. It should be more firm. This is one of the most common dishes we have in Kenya. And then this dish goes very well with the beef stew, with the meat stew, and also with the vegetables, the greens, spinach or kale. It goes very well with that. With this dish, and why it's important, it's because of the technology that we have to use to cook these different dishes. So the pot that you use to cook ugali is not the same pot that you use to prepare your stew, your meat stew, or your bean stew, or your dengu stew. And the ugali has to be cooked in a certain way that it brings out the flavors and it is well done to the African or to the Kenyan context. With the technologies that we have here, ugali would not be made with an air fryer or a rice cooker, and at some point it can be done with a pressure cooker, but in very limited options because of the way we want to have it done. So it still has to be done with a traditional stove, probably a liquid petroleum gas or a charcoal stove for it to be what it is. So that is one of the dishes and why we have to choose between the different pots. So I can't cook my ugali with gas, but then I can cook my stew with electric pressure cooker or with a normal sufuria on a different stove. The other common dish that we have in Kenya is chapati, or what you can call the flatbread. The flatbread is what you make with the wheat flour and becomes like bread, but it is flat. So with that kind of a meal, it needs a lot of turning and applying of butter. So it would also be very, very hard to use with some of the technologies we have here. You can't use that on either of this. It has to be on a pan, a flat pan. So the only way to do that is you having maybe an induction cooker or a gas cooker, or use it on the Jiko. But then because of the regulation of the temperature, then you also need a stove that you can easily regulate the temperature to high and low. So that's also a limitation to the technology. The other one would be something like rice and the grains, the whole grains that we do. So the whole grains can be done with most of the technologies we have here, but because it needs a lot of time to boil, then we would opt for technologies that would be either more efficient or would withstand cooking for longer, and you don't need to be there to manage that. So all these dishes, one of the dishes is what we call githeri in Kenya. So this is a mixture of maize and beans. So you just mix maize and beans and then you boil them. With a traditional jiko, this would go for like 2 to 3 hours to have the dish ready. But of course now with the newer technologies like the pressure cooker, this would only take you 45 minutes to 1 hour. More efficient and less time. So we have different Kenyan recipes, very beautiful recipes, dependent on the communities where we come from. So if you come from the lake region, the main recipe might be fish and anything related to fish. If you come from central region, the main dish would be maize and beans and potatoes and cabbages, because that's what's commonly grown there. If you go to the upper regions, you will find other different recipes, again, depending on where you are. And the technologies to use, the stoves and the pots to use would also be dependent on the technology, on the recipes or on the dishes that we are cooking. So it differs. It matters on where you're coming from and what food you're cooking.
I love it. And I think so many cooks can relate, because it's kind of like people who enjoy barbecues. You'll get some people arguing it's got to be over charcoal, otherwise you just don't get the same smoky flavor, and other proponents of gas. So I love that the communities are still staying true to their culture and to the traditional flavors of these meals, because that's so important. You need to enjoy the food by incorporating a combination of traditional methods and also new technologies. It's brilliant. Purity, just so everyone knows, just tell us what recipes are on the recipe card that we're going to be sending out, so people know what to expect.
So we will be sharing recipes of how to make ugali, that mixture of maize, flour with boiling water. We'll also share the recipe for preparing chapati, the flatbread. We'll share a recipe from what we call omena. It's a type of fish that is common in our community. And we'll also share a recipe, I guess, of githeri, how to prepare that. So we have a couple of recipes that we're going to share today.
Beautiful.
Appetizing. Please try them.
Wonderful. Right, we're now going to shoot back over to Nepal, where I think the food may be ready and it's time for some tasting.
Both of our dishes are now ready. We'll ask our colleague Sanjeev to taste the dish. Welcome, Sanjeev.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Susma and Himal. You have prepared two amazing dishes. What is this?
It's called kheer or rice pudding, and this
This one is aloo ko
aloo ko
achar.
achar.
Okay,
Yes.
pickled potato.
Yes.
Now let me. Can you give me a little bit of taste, please, so that I can test and let people know how it tastes like. This is delicious. This is so sweet. And let me taste this one. It's so spicy, amazing. Thank you so much for preparing these dishes. We'll make sure to share the recipes of both these dishes with you all. Thank you.
Oh my goodness, it looks as good as I thought it would. And I think Sanjeev is gunning for a role as critic on MasterChef, gunning for my role. He's doing a great job. Wonderful. The time has gone so quickly. Some of my thoughts are, I just think it's so great as a supporter to fully understand the difference that change starts small. This is practical action sort of motto. The difference that what a seemingly small change can make because of the fact that it ripples out into communities, and how the lives of not just the person who's changed their cooking, but actually the wider communities get transformed because of these changes. So yes, that was absolutely all wonderful. We're going to share the link to the recipe cards in the chat. If anyone does need to leave now, thank you so much for your time and for joining. If you have a little bit of spare time, then we are now moving to a Q&A, and I think we've had some quite good questions coming through, which we can ask now. I'm going to ask, let me have a look at these. Right, okay. Q&A, some great questions. Purity, I've got one for you. So somebody has asked, where is the electricity coming from for these electric cooking devices? And how is it that people from poorer communities are actually able to afford these technologies? How does the project work exactly?
First thing is to mention that Kenya has about 76% electric connection, grid connection. So this, to a huge part, has contributed to adoption of modern e-cooking technologies. But then the setup is also slightly different when you go to the rural communities. We have the very last mile where there's purely no connection, or where grid is unreliable. But then we have also a bigger part of it, more peri-urban setup, whereby there's grid connection and there's a bit of stability with that connection. So these are our first adopters, and these are the areas that we are focusing on, the urban areas and the peri-urban areas, especially where there's grid connection and electricity is quite stable. That is where we are focusing on. So for adoption, we are supporting women energy entrepreneurs. So these are entrepreneurs with energy businesses, and what they do is to go promoting these technologies, and then of course it's a business for them. So we just introduce them and link them to suppliers of the modern clean energy technologies, and then they expand their business range, they expand their product range to be able to incorporate this as part of their businesses, as part of their business package. So that is the model that we are using. Again, we are working very closely with the renewable energy technology suppliers. We are working closely with the county government and the national government. We are working closely with the financial institutions just to be able to create synergies in terms of how do we ensure the technologies are available, how do we build the supply chain, how do we ensure the policies are conducive and friendly to the women entrepreneurs applying the technologies, and also how do we ensure there is access to finance, either via mainstream financial institutions like the banks and the microfinance institutions, and at the very, very low level, forming women into groups so that they can mobilize resources. And even as small as they are, they can buy products for one woman this time and then next time buy for another woman, or they can co-lend each other money to be able to purchase these technologies. So those are some of the models that we're using.
I see. So Practical Action's role is sort of the nitty-gritty of connecting these different silos, because these technologies exist, but not everyone necessarily knows about them, or they can't access them, or they can't access the finance to get them. And then part of the project is joining up all those dots so that a network is built and can kind of look after itself after time, and I guess grow once it's set up as well. Okay, great. Thanks, Purity. Another question. Why is there no smoke from the new stove, even though it's still burning wood? So I guess when we were looking at the cooking in Nepal, yeah, I mean, it's a great question. There's still wood burning, but there's no smoke coming out. So why is that? How does that work?
It's all about the design of the stove and the efficiency around the stove. So the stoves are designed to allow more air circulation and allow, so you, first of all, they help by using fewer pieces of wood or fewer pieces of charcoal for that. But then the design is also done in a way that there will be more air circulation, ensuring that the charcoal or the firewood is burning more efficiently. So there's minimal emission of smoke. There's minimal wastage and there's also minimal emission coming out of that. So essentially when there's smoke, it's because there's also not enough oxygen circulating to burn the wood efficiently. So it's just simple in relation to the design of the technologies.
So interesting how like simple design changes can actually completely affect how the wood burns and therefore how much smoke is produced. Thanks, Purity. Someone else would like to know, Purity, what's your experience of cooking? Like, yes, your personal experience. Do you use these things? And were you previously using more traditional things? And I guess what personal changes have you experienced?
Yeah, good question. I of course I have an experience with both traditional cooking and modern cooking technologies. I grew up in a rural setup. So when I was growing up, generally in our rural setup, we were also using the 3-stone firewood stove. We were using the charcoal stoves before all these newer technologies came in. So I have an experience with the traditional stove, but as I was growing up and as the new technologies were being promoted, my parents decided to adopt the biogas technology because our homestead had a lot of cows. So we had a biogas installed in our home, and so slowly we started converting from the use of firewood to now more of biogas because it was free and it was easier and faster to use. So we converted to use of biogas, only a few times using the charcoal stove because of the heavy boiling of whole grains. Again, with modernization and as we were growing up and coming to the urban setup, when we could not use firewood, we again switched to using LPG gas. And again, still maintained a bit of the charcoal stove because in town, most of the families were still using the charcoal and LPG. But then with my experience in the energy sector, I came to learn about the newer technologies. I came to appreciate how different they change our lives, how much they can change our lives. So over time, I have been one of the promoters of clean energy technologies, including the technologies that you're seeing here. So all these are the technologies that I use in my home. So it means every single day, I have to use any of these technologies for my cooking, and I never have to use a firewood stove or a charcoal stove anymore. I don't use that anymore. And that means it is easier for me to promote the technologies to other women out of my personal experience. And if I wanted to demonstrate how they work, it's easier for me because this is something I use every single day. So this are technologies, an everyday technology for me. And it's obviously a reminder of how many women, the millions of women in Kenya who have to continue using dangerous traditional stoves and fuels, and how much work we need to do as a project, as practical action, and as a community to be able to support these other women to transition to at least a higher tier cook stove. So yes, I have experience and I'm a doctor of clean cooking technologies.
I mean, that's a perfect segue into the next question, Purity. What does the future hold for the project in Kenya?
There's a lot of potential for scale and for expansion of the work that we are doing in Kenya. We've been able to support a good number of women entrepreneurs, but that is not enough. We still have about 9 million people still using traditional stoves. So there's a lot of potential for promoting clean energy technologies. But of course, we can't do this alone. Already practical action is doing a lot, but we know that without synergizing our effort, without partnerships, without a strong budget to support the work, it's going to be overwhelming for the suppliers, it's overwhelming for the women entrepreneurs, it's overwhelming for the communities. So we know we are going to continue working towards transition to clean energy technologies. We now have the backing by the national government and the county governments because we're already developing county energy plans. And with the county energy plans, it means we are looking at increased adoption of cleaner technologies. But then we also need partners. We need supporters to just come and support this work so that we're able to scale and we're able to expand even to other regions, not just to what the current with 3 project is focusing on.
So lots of work still to do, but so much that's already been done that can be expanded on and continue growing, which is great to hear. Someone has asked me, have you been inspired by any of the recipes shared today? Do you like cooking food inspired by different places around the world? Well, all of this, Purity, all of this chat has reminded me about 2022, I think it was, where I summited Mount Kilimanjaro, fundraising for Practical Action, which is in Tanzania, which is your neighbor. And what I recall from the 5 days trekking up to the top and the 2 days coming down was one of my favorite parts of the entire thing were the meals that were cooked in the mess tents by the kitchen staff. And what I always found absolutely mind-blowing is that through what I think are the small little gas canister that you have right next to your laptop, I think that's what they had with them. I think it was like 1 or 2 of those, they were able to rustle up these 3-course menus for about 15 of us, using a couple of these stoves and traditional food that was so filling because we needed so much energy and calories to keep going. It's so delicious and so filling. And I remember being the only one who would part the curtains of the kitchen tent and being like, hi, can I come into the kitchen and just see what you're doing? Because this is so amazing to me. And some of the dishes you mentioned as well, I feel like there's a lot of overlap with Tanzanian cuisine, and it brought back some really lovely memories. As far as the cooking I've seen today, the aloo ko acha. Oh my gosh, I'm just absolutely all over that. And the kheer. And what I should say, what we would love to see from people is if anybody does make any of this stuff, you've got to send us pictures. We would love to see them. What you can do is if you post them on social, you can tag Practical Action, or you can email them to Practical Action. I think the guys have put the email in the chat, and then possibly they might include some in the next Small World magazine, which would be cool. That would be so nice to see. I think we've come to the end pretty much. Have we got time for anything else? Let me check the chat. No, I think that's it. Purity, you've been absolutely just a dream and so lovely to chat to, and you've explained everything so well. And I think we all have a much better understanding of what's going on and the difference that Practical Action kind of helping make all these connections and letting people speak to each other, and so that they even realize that these new technologies exist, and all the other things that they do is just really wonderful to hear. Thank you for sharing your story and also your personal experience. And next time I'm in Kenya, I'm going to be knocking on your door and just inviting myself over for dinner.
You're most welcome.
And there's Purity. When me and you are in Nepal one day, we'll get Shushma and Himal to cook us that dish.
Oh,
and
yes.
that sauce.
That would be lovely.
That would be so nice. Everyone, thank you so much. Do check the chat for any final points that the team are saying. They've got all the contact details and everything else there. It's been a pleasure. I hope you all enjoyed it. And if you are hungry, I hope you all get to go and have lunch now. Thank you all.